Hello everyone, and here we are with another edition of Solving Standard. The deck I'm going to be playing is a deck that is kind of the boogeyman of Standard at the moment, the new best deck if you will, but hey, there always has to be a best deck, right? So it's Jeskai Fires. So after the recent bannings of a bunch of green cards, we saw now this deck the stock has really risen. It's super powerful, Fires of Invention, plus you get just a bunch of big creatures, and it enables super busted turns once you get the Fires out. You do really want a Fires of Invention pretty much in all of your draws. You want to have it on turn 4 if possible. Shimmer Possibility and Drawn from Dreams help you to smooth out your draw. Also, there's 4 copies of Sphinx of Foresight, so this is a new addition to the deck. It's an innovation that wasn't previously in the deck necessarily, but the Scry 3, if it's in your opening hand, also is a way to help smooth out your draw. Bone Crusher Giant and Deafening Clarion, those are your early removal spells. And then there's also Teferi Time Raveler, just a super powerful card. We know about Teferi. We are playing the colors blue and white, so it makes sense to have that one. 4 copies of Fires of Invention. It's the namesake card in the deck, and it allows you to play 2 5-drops in a turn. Also, you don't have to use your mana, so you can still have mana to, say, activate a Cavalier of Flame. So yeah, super powerful card. 4 copies, and then we've got 4 of each of the Cavaliers as our big payoff cards. Once we play a turn 4 Fires, we get to then just start jamming these Cavaliers. The blue one is the draw 3, put 2 back, but the red one is actually probably the more powerful of the 2, just being able to give your Cavaliers haste and enable just a huge attack. 1 copy of Kenrith the Returned King as that other 5-mana creature, and then 1 Time Wipe as kind of a flex slot. 3 copies of Castle Vantress. So this is a really good card in the deck, because if you have a Fires out, you don't have to use your mana, so you can use your mana to scry 2, and then you can still cast whatever spells you want off the Fires. And then there's also a bunch of scry lands. So this deck has a lot of scrying. Sideboard, we have Devout Decree. There's a bunch of Rakdos aggro decks popping up. This is clearly going to be good in those matchups. Aether Gust is a flexible card and a really good sideboard card just for blue decks in general. I think blue decks just generally want this. Spyglass primarily is against the Witch's Oven decks, and then we've got Mystical Disputes and Legion Warbosses for the control, slower matchups. 1 copy of Solar Blaze as another mass removal spell. So that is the Jeskai Fires deck, which we are going to be playing right now on the ladder. I've been liking this deck a lot. It's just a really, really good deck. And we're going to keep this. We don't have the Fires, but what we do have is a Sphinx of Foresight and 2 Scrylands, so we can scry. I think we're just looking for Fires. I'm just going to bottom all of these cards because we want to make sure we have the Fires at some point in this game. Otherwise, our draw is going to be not as good as what the deck is capable of. And we see Temple of Epiphany on the other side of the battlefield, meaning this could be a mirror. Don't know yet. We also do need land, so I'm just going to top this now. I was bottoming them earlier, but we do want to just be able to If we don't have our fires draw, which right now we do not, we want to be able to just curve into, you know, decent cards. And I think Teferi, if our opponent's playing a flash deck here, I think Teferi is the card we want to lead on, just in case they don't have the Quench. Maybe they have a Brineborn Cutthroat there. Okay, so there's a Bone Crusher Giant. It looks like our opponent is playing Is It Flash, is what it looks like. So I'm just going to play out this Sphinx. Don't know that we want to trade here. Don't think we do, because we have Clarion that can get rid of the Bone Crusher, and then just the Scries is valuable off the Sphinx. Now our opponent could bounce the Sphinx, potentially. There's not that... Like, I doubt our opponent's main decking a card like Lava Coil that just straight up gets rid of it. So yeah, we see the Brazen Borrower. And we do have the option of just replaying our Sphinx of Foresight. I think that's okay. This is a tricky matchup, especially when we're not doing our, you know, the insane busted stuff that the deck is kind of built to be able to do. So we have to play this game that we're not in love with, but still don't think we want to trade. I'm gonna go to 10. This isn't, the Flash deck is unlikely to have a bunch of burn spells in their deck. And the Clarion could be a way, once again, to deal with the Bone Crusher if we want to cast that, which I think we just cast it here. Especially having to, and just go... So the issue with casting it is that if our opponent has an additional burn spell, they can then get rid of the Sphinx of Foresight. So, like, say our opponent has another Bone Crusher or a Shock or something like that. It's annoying, but I think we just go for the high upside choice, which is cast it and give our Sphinx lifelink and see what they do. Now this deck normally plays cards like Ionize as counter magic. Definitely there's some counter magic that this deck has access to. We already saw Quench. Alright, so we're hoping our opponent does not have a burn spell. Okay, so they're gonna Rouse Outburst, which is bad, but at least they're not committing another threat to the board. And the Outburst could get rid of the Bone Crusher Giant anyways. It's definitely not good news for us, but we can now just play out a Bone Crusher Giant. Yeah, our draw just hasn't really done what the deck is supposed to do. I think we just jam this Cavalier and pitch. We pitch one or both of these. I think it's just both. We didn't draw a land there, so we cannot give the Cavalier haste. Of course, the Flash deck is trying, like, it's good against, it's a pretty difficult matchup because of all of the interactive cards that they have. It's tough to play around, removal, counter spells, and then the big payoff cards like Gadwick. So if they're just passing, that means that it's fairly likely they have... Well, they're gonna have blue spells here to tap some of our stuff. But I'm just gonna jam this Cavalier, see if it resolves. 2 mana available. Okay, so it resolves. That's interesting. So we're gonna now see what our opponent's got. And they have enough to foil our plan. Let's go to game 2. So we want all 4 copies of Mystical Dispute. That's gonna be that's our best card here, for sure. And I think we want to sideboard out some of our expensive stuff, like Time Wipe can come out. I think we can take out Cavalier, Drawn from Dreams. Just kind of a card we don't have necessarily the time to cast that. Maybe 1 Clarion is fine. It was actually pretty awkward for us that game. Yes, they have 3 toughness creatures, but sometimes it just doesn't line up the right way, or it's just a 1-for-1 trade. Which is, like, fine if you're getting, like, but if you're getting a Gadwick off a Clarion, your opponent has already presumably drawn a bunch of cards off of the Gadwick. If you're getting a Bonecrusher Giant off Clarion, your opponent's probably already dealt 2 damage to something. So it's nice to be able to have it as a flexible card, but like we also saw in the spot where we had the Sphinx that dealing the 3 damage to our own creatures is also awkward. So I think it's not the best in this matchup. We're good here. Once again, we don't have fires. But we do have Teferi, which is a really good card in the matchup. I think we just ditch this Shimmer of Possibility. I don't think we want that one. Just make sure we have our land drops, and Teferi is... If we can get this into... I think we're going to potentially... We have a good shot at getting a Teferi down, which is one of our best cards in the matchup. Just because our opponent is playing a flash deck, they're going to have more of a difficult time dealing with it. So we're just going to keep the Steam Vents on top. Just want to play this so we have a tap land for turn. And jam this Teferi now because we have a backup one if this doesn't work out. And next turn we can go Teferi plus have Mystical Dispute up, which is really powerful. So like the previous game, our opponent has Quench at the right time. Quench is not good later in games, but on turn 2 it's a very good card. Interesting, they ran out of Bone Crusher, so if we went to Teferi, bounce it, then our opponent can actually get rid of our Teferi. So that's awkward, but I'm just gonna play a Sphinx now. Like, it sucks, right? But like, if we play Teferi now and bounce Bone Crusher, it's not really accomplishing us very much. I think I'll likely jam Teferi this turn, because we have the dispute up in case of something. Yeah, so we're just going to counter the Blindborn Cutthroat. Bounce the Bone Crusher to at least kind of buy us some time.
Might be a bad idea.
And there's the fires. So we finally drew fires. And we have 2 fires. Actually, I think we just keep... this fires also? No. No. I mean, so... if it gets countered, it sucks, but like... there's a decent chance our opponent just casts the Bone Crusher this turn also. Oh, but they don't have the mana. Okay, well... I'm gonna jam fires now. With 2 mana up to pay for a Quench. And then the question is, do we want a Cavalier or Sphinx? I think we just want to Sphinx this turn, so we get the Scry off of it next turn, and then we can Cavalier on the following turn. I think this is better. Also, they could have had something like a Mystical Dispute. I guess they could bounce this. They bounce this, but they could also bounce the fires, so... yeah, this seems fine. Fabled Passage is actually a really nice card to have alongside of Cavalier in case we want to shuffle things back into our deck. I'm going to start with the Cavalier of Gales here. So, yeah, this is a situation where I'm going to put Fires and Clarion back. So this was the first time in this match where we actually had like a good fires turn where we've had fires, we've untapped with the fires in play. And I'm fine to lose this Cavalier if our opponent wants to deal some damage to this and let their Bone Crusher die. That's fine. The trigger off the Cavalier is pretty relevant, because we do get to shuffle it away, and then we get to scry too. So this is just gonna likely set us up for a really good next turn. Alright, here we go, Cavalier of Gales, so that's an easy card to keep on top of our deck. And we just have the combo. The red Cavalier here is probably just game. So yeah, just getting to play multiple Cavaliers, multiple big things in a turn, exactly what we want to be doing. Don't think we want to change anything. For game 3, I mean, Aether Gust is interesting, but there's not that many red cards in the deck. There's Bone Crushers, Ral's Outbursts. Maybe we want some on the draw, just as like Bone Crushers, Ral's Outbursts, and Ionizes. I think they have Ionizes, likely. So this is a hand where our mana's bad. We have bad mana just because we don't have a red and we have 3 just blue sources. We do have Mystical Dispute plus Teferi plus Bone Crusher, so our spells are pretty good. No fires, but the problem is, and the reason why I'm keeping this is because I don't think it's a matchup where you can rely on fires that much. And the reason why I say that is because they have all of these counter spells, so it's harder to get a fires into play. I'm going to lead on Fable Passage, and we're just going to have to guess here. I think I'm going to get a red and then hope to draw white. Because we have a white and a red spell, and there's really no perfect decision there. Ended up drawing a red, but like if our opponent had an end of turn Brineborn Cutthroat, we can blow that out with a Bone Crusher Giant, right? Now, kind of want to Shimmer and hold up the Mystical Dispute. If this gets countered, I think we just let it get countered. Like, Shimmer is one of those cards where it's just kind of a fixer. It's not, like, in and of itself doing anything. Let's grab Sphinx here as a decent threat to have access to. Here's a Brazen Borrower. I'm just going to let that in. We have the Bone Crusher, which we can potentially use to answer Brazen Borrower, and the Mystical Dispute is a very high-value card for us. There's the White Temple, so I think this is a pretty good time to just get the White Temple into play. Now we don't need our white mana, and we can hold up all of our stuff, basically. It's a bit of a question if we want to fire off the Bone Crusher, which, yeah, I think we should. Because we're able to untap and play something good. If our opponent taps a bunch of mana, this turn it's probably good for us. So it's an interesting spot, because our opponent likely has a way to interact, but they also can't necessarily afford to, because they're afraid of us just untapping and going fires, Cavalier, etc., etc. And they also may suspect the Mystical Dispute, which we do indeed have in hand. The Castle of Mantras is interesting, because we can now have double Dispute up. So I think I'd just go for that, because Teferi's such a powerful card that we just kind of want to force it in there if we can. So we could double dispute, but I actually don't think that's worth it to use both mysticals. I mean, we would have a Teferi on the battlefield against Flash, which is pretty valuable. So the question is, do we want a Sphinx or Bone Crusher this turn? I think I'm going to Sphinx. If they have another mystical, that would be pretty bad for us. Maybe because of Brazen Borrower, it was better to Bone Crusher there. But I'm just gonna stop the. This is why it's tough to play against Flash. Although this is a good turn for us. We get to counter that. Now we drew a Fires. So, pretty easy turn. I'm going to set the upkeep stop. We may want to scry with Castle Vantress before we draw. Alright, so they're going to force through a Gadwick. Draw a bunch of cards here, which is pretty good. So we're gonna start with our scry off Sphinx. We have another Sphinx, which is not bad. It's not bad. It's also not the best possible here, but it's not bad. So. All right, I think we just leave the Sphinx on top and draw it and just play Sphinx Bone Crusher, and then next turn we get to scry a bunch and set up our draws. And also, by not scrying, if our opponent does have a mystical, which they could have had there. A mystical dispute. We play around it. And we're not under tremendous pressure. And with all of the scrying, it's kind of a close spot, I guess, because our opponent does have a ton of cards in hand. Okay. Yep, so we want the red Cavalier. We're just going to scry that to the top. We're going to have to hope that our opponent doesn't have a bounce spell here. A counter spell. I think we might want to attack first to kind of hedge against that. Yeah, I'm gonna go to combat because we want our opponent to, if they do have a counter spell, which I guess we do have Aether Gust if it happens to be a Ionize, which there's a decent chance they have Ionize, which would allow us to go Cavalier and Aether Gust. So I think this is actually a really nice spot to just play the Cavalier. Yep, and they have Ionize, which I kind of was expecting they had. Now, this isn't like a hard counterspell. They do get to put the Ionize on top of their deck to counter future spells of ours. But it puts us in a spot where we have three threats that our opponent now has to answer. We just want to make sure we're drawing something useful every single turn. It's good enough to draw for sure. And I think this is a spot where we want to go to combat. Force our opponent to play this stuff. So now our opponent doesn't have Ionized mana anymore. So they've tapped. They've had to. I mean, they kind of were forced to do this, but they've tapped their mana, so we can now get this Cavalier down. And this is the power of the scrying. So we're not going to play anything. We're just going to go to combat. Make our opponent play some stuff before we attack. Get in there and make our opponent react to our attacks. We also just can pump our... We have double pump, or triple pump available to us for the Cavaliers. If they're letting their Gadwick die, I'm worried that they might have another Gadwick. I think we want to pump for maximum damage here. And then just pass. We're not going to let them ionize our Cavalier. And if they go for a Gadwick or something, they would just get super punished. Both of these are actually quite good. The Gust is valuable. Kind of want to keep the Gust. Maybe that's a mistake. But it means we have an answer to... means we have an answer to the Ionize. I could have attacked first. If I attack first, I think this is right, because our opponent's pretty likely to have something to pump the Cutthroats. And actually, this attack is still representing lethal, I believe. So we have a land and graveyard. And if the Cavalier dies, this is just lethal. Yep. Definitely an interesting matchup to be playing against the Flash deck with fires. Gadwick is the card that essentially, from the Flash perspective, you want to time the turn where you cast a Gadwick perfectly, because it's the card you need to like get ahead on cards. But it's also the card that is the scariest to cast, because by playing Gadwick, you usually are going to tap out to play it. So this is one of the more interesting hands. Yes, we have a fires, but we only have 2 lands. We have no scry capabilities. I'm actually gonna ship that. I prefer this hand. Just gonna put back a Clarion because we have mana. We don't know the matchup, so we have to assume that our best plan is going to be a quick fires, which there it is. There's the fires, which means we're not gonna have to shimmer for it. We have a decision this turn. We could shimmer, but I think I would rather just get a tap land into play to protect our life total, and our opponent missed a land drop. This is going to allow us to get an island into play, so we have perfect mana now, and I think we want to just go ahead and get rid of these spitters at a reasonable enough life total versus mono red, but we can still get burned out from here. Okay, their turn is just Steamkin. That is good news, because this is our fires to fairy spot.
This isn't a fight you can win. Let's try this.
Okay, Fervent Champion, so they can go after Teferi. But we do have another one, so it's not that bad for us. I think we want to see. So it's either Drawn from Dreams or Sphinx of Foresight here. Kind of a tough choice. Don't know if we have time for Drawn from Dreams, so I'm going to take the Sphinx. And then we have a question of if we just cast it here. I'm going to scry for a little bit more information. Okay. Let's keep the Bone Crusher Giant there and bounce the Steamkin to hurt our opponent's mana development, and then also if our opponent just plays the Steamkin again, we have the Bone Crusher to deal it 2 damage, which is it's fairly likely at this point that would kill off the runaway Steamkin. Upkeep, I think we can scry. We might find a better option on top of our deck, or just get rid of some lands. So, like, our Fire's turns haven't been that special, but it still feels like we're getting ahead each turn. And we're putting a bunch of lands on the bottom of our deck, so that's good. Once again, setting that upkeep stop. Because now we really do want a Cavalier. And we're going to have to trade off for that if our opponent attacked, which they interestingly decided to leave back the Paladin. Definitely want to scry. So I'm just going to keep another Sphinx, I think. I guess the problem is our opponent can just Embercleave us, and so maybe I was supposed to bottom the Sphinx and just hope to draw an answer to that. I'm not sure, because Embercleave is pretty gross here. Our opponent's probably has it, which, I mean, we've gotten fairly unlucky to just be in this situation. So this is what, 14 power? So we're just taking infinite here. But we're still alive. If our opponent... Okay. They're also shocking the Bone Crusher. That's weird. I would have thought they might use the shock elsewhere. But I guess they want the Fervent Champion in play. That makes sense. So we're at 4. Okay, we're still alive. We get to scry again. And Teferi. So yeah, we're gonna top that, but it's not great. We get to bounce the Fervent Champion and then hope to draw something off our Teferi.
I can no longer stand by and watch.
Or I guess we can bounce the Embercleave. That might be better. Yeah, that's better.
Here goes nothing.
Ugh. Wow. I think we've gotten super unlucky this game. Just off of our, like, normally when you get fires going like this, it's just gonna be GG. But we didn't find any Cavaliers, which until this one. But we're dead to. Well, we're not dead. Okay, we go to 1 here actually. So now we're in a spot where we want to draw this Cavalier, and we do have some outs. I think we may want to scry first because we want to find like a Deafening Clarion is the main out that's coming to mind here. So what if we just have 2 Cavaliers in play? I guess our opponent cannot cast the Embercleave unless they draw a land. Alright, I'm gonna keep the red Cavalier on top. I think that's too good to pass on. Cannot attack, of course, being that we're at one life. So there's a lot of draws here that kill us. Lots of draws. That's one of them. Don't think I punted this game, but that's just me saying that right now. Like, it's very possible that I did, and I'll just look back and realize that I messed up at some point, because that felt like a game that we should have won. I'm going to be boarding in Devout Decree and Aether Gust. I think on the play, cutting Time Wipe is fine. Cutting some amount of our expensive stuff. Generally, we just want to be interacting early, and we draw the Cavaliers. That was just a weird, very weird game. Like we scryed so many times with Castle of Antris. If we draw those like if the scries had happened in a different order or something, it would have like. I think we were a big favorite once we had a Cavaliers down on that board. Once we had a Fires down, yeah. So, anyways, we keep. And we have Fires, so we're looking for lands. I think this is one we just have to keep on top of our deck. Even though it hurts, it's like probably the worst land, one of the worst lands we could have on top. I'm just going to take the 2 damage off the steam vents and pass so that we have Aether Gust available to us. And we're going to just be gusting something here. Could be Light Up the Stage, could be Runaway Steamkin. Could be Rimrock Knight. I think that's worth it. Just buying us time. It's a tap White Source, so we cannot get that one down right now. I'm going to take the Bone Crusher because it's just interaction, which is what we're looking for. And this time we are going to have the Red Cavalier, although we do need a 5th land to be able to get it into play with the Fires. But the nice thing about playing against Mono Red is that we don't have to be worried about our opponent having ways to interact with the Fires itself. We know that they're not going to be able to do that. So it's a question of what we want to do this turn. I think we just get rid of this War Boss. But kind of a not an amazing spot to be in, but definitely. I mean, our opponent's got 5 cards in hand. We're at 14, which seems like a lot, but now we're going to 10. So we'd like a Deafening Clarion once again. I think I play the Steam Vents and play the Cavalier of Flame. And just try to dig for Clarion. Although... yeah, I'm gonna play the Cavalier. It's just a question of if we want to keep one of these Teferis, I think. Or not. Because Teferi also gives us some protection against an Embercleave. Yeah, I'm gonna keep one, I think. Just get it down. We can bounce the Goblin token.
I've got time.
I guess there's a chance we're just supposed to get in there with our Cavalier. As weird as that is. We could deal our opponent 8 this turn. And then... so, if we got in, which is an aggressive line... this is 5 damage. Yeah, I think it's just a little too aggressive. Like, I want to, but there's a very decent chance that we're dead, right? It's close. Yeah, I want to get in, but I'm not going to. Because I'll feel stupid if we just lose. Like, if we got in, it means that we're fairly likely to have a kill on the next turn. But it looks like... Actually, Torbran isn't... I don't think it's enough. It would have been enough. Anyways, I kind of want to block... Well, our opponent's attacking Teferi. So now I don't want to block, because we don't really... Well, we do care about Teferi if our opponent's plan is to Embercleave us. And they probably don't make this attack unless they have an Embercleave. So with that logic, maybe we do make this block. And that was a spot where we could have scryed upkeep, but we have a reasonable turn lined up. Not like an insane turn, but we can scry. We can scry. During our opponent's end step. I think I put the Sphinx is a close card, but I'm gonna put that on the bottom because I think there's just better things we can find with our scry 2. And we get to keep Teferi in play, which is big. Okay, never mind. It's getting fried. But, hey, we made our opponent fry a Teferi, so... That's okay. That's a win, I think. Now we have a Clarion. Don't think that's what we want, what we're looking for. Bone Crusher is good. Put the Shimmer on the bottom. Bone Crusher is good. We get to just go ahead and crush this Steamkin, and then now we have a choice where we can actually make an attack if we want to. I'm going to. I think we have to try to get this game over with at some point. Keeping the land in hand in case we find another red Cavalier. Okay, Frenzy. So they're taking this turn to Frenzy, which is... That was actually just insane for our opponent. They found Mountain... They basically found the best possible 2 cards off the top of their Frenzy. But what are we gonna do? So, I think the plan is to attack here, but then we have the question of what we want to do with our Teferi. I think we just have to bounce the Frenzy, right? Alright, let's play Teferi first.
Right on schedule.
Bounce Frenzy.
I'll protect you.
Okay, that's not what we wanted. So the question is now, do we attack with both or just one? And I think it's just one. Oh my god, stop. Fervent Champions are really, like, they're only scary when you have a bunch of them. Which our opponent does. So they're gonna, they really want this Teferi gone. Still trying to set up for an Embercleave. But with Frenzy, they cannot just immediately play an Embercleave out of their hand. Okay, there's a land off the top, of course. Oh my god! This is just... I mean, this is just crazy at this point. It's the exact same situation that happened to us the previous turn. Finally got a blue Cavalier. So... I will be casting that. Would have been so easy if we just hit a red Cavalier there, but we did not. I'm gonna play Teferi, I think, this turn. But the question is, do we want to attack? And if... I think we do want to attack. I don't know if it's with one or with both of the Bone Crushers. So if we attack with both, what happens? I'm gonna attack with both. Attack with both. Play Teferi. Hope not to die here, obviously.
I know my responsibility.
I think we're just bouncing the Frenzy.
No, I am not making this up as I go.
We know that our opponent likely has an Embercleave, but they would have to... So they would have to get rid of Teferi. And if they're just tapping for Frenzy again, I think we're in the clear here. I think we basically have this locked up. Alright. We got a game 3 of this match. This has been quite the battle. Normally the mono red games are much more straightforward than this. Another card I probably should have touched on is Solar Blaze. It's possible we should have brought this one in for the last game. It is pretty much a 4-mana Wrath, so it's better than Time Wipe in this matchup. I'm gonna cut a Shimmer on the draw just because, like, Shimmers, sometimes you just don't have time for Shimmers. And right now it's 7 big things plus the 4 Sphinxes. And I think that's where we want to stay. Could see one more blue Cavalier because they are very good when we are able to have a Fire's turn. That's just what we're looking for, is the Cavaliers. The Shimmers are important though in that they help us get there. But hey, this is a nice one. We're definitely keeping this. So we have 1 Fires, definitely don't need that. I think we just keep the... Do we even keep the Bone Crusher Giant? I think we keep Bone Crusher because it's just so good on turn 2. And we're gonna have this Scry land. We have a land on top, which we're kind of obligated to keep. And now the question is, do we Bone Crusher this, or do we hold on to the Bone Crusher and just play a tap land and then set up for a better Deafening Clarion? But I think we just want to get rid of the Steamkin, because by having that in play, it allows them to light up the stage. Although, this makes my play seem pretty bad, I guess. The other reason to do that, I could have waited. So waiting has value for sure. But at the same time, if our opponent just attacks, it's possible they have double red spell. So, like, the reason not to wait is that our opponent can just go, they can just go attack, and then if we go deal 2 damage to Runaway Steamkin, they could go you know, Rimrot Knight, Bone Crusher Giant. Now my Steamkin is a 3/3, right? So maybe, I mean, the way that happened, I'm not sure if my play was right. I think it probably wasn't, but that's the reasoning, at least, to do it on our turn. We want to play fires here for sure, and then the question is what the follow-up is going to be, and I think I just want to Sphinx here because it's a 4-power creature. They could have removal for it, but now we're going to Clarion, and I think we're in a really nice spot with the Cavalier ready to go as well. And Clarion is probably the safest thing we can do here. Although I guess if we Teferi, it does give us some protection against Embercleave, which is pretty good. They could have another Fry, though. I think I'm just going to Clarion. I think it's too greedy to wait on it. And that was the wrong order, by the way. I thought I did it the other way. We wanted the Shimmer to be... We wanted the other order there, but... Question is now, do we want to draw the Shimmer, which probably we don't. Can bounce... We're going to play Teferi Bounce and probably play Bone Crusher this turn.
Show remorse. I'll trust me. I have a plan.
Alright, easy. Easy, even though this deck is forgiving. Like, I don't know that my lines have been correct in these games, but it's a forgiving deck because once you get fires in play, stupid things can happen. And for every bad decision I've made, I think I've made a good one, so it'll even itself out. Magic's a hard game. Okay, yeah. Turn 4 fires. We're not going to say no to that. Having 2 of them is probably not where we want to be, but this is one of the more awkward situations where we don't know the matchup, so we don't know if we're supposed to keep the Clarion or not. I'm going to put it on the bottom because we already have a Bone Crusher Giant, and we might just want to fire that off here. Opponent starts with the Steam Vents. This could be a mirror match. If it is, like if our opponent plays a white land there, I think we definitely shock, but since they didn't, I'm just going to take this slow because it could just be the Is It Flash deck. And if it is it Flash, we may want the Bone Crusher as a way to deal with, like, say our opponent end of turned a Brineborn Cutthroat there. We would definitely want it, right? This is like a spot where I definitely thought the fires would get countered. I'm just gonna play the second one to give us insurance, because they could also have the bounce spell. So it's either a Mana Screwed Fires deck or an Is It deck. That was extremely odd. Okay. I think it's more likely that our opponent was mana screwed fires than is it, but like I don't know. That was super weird. I think we want our Mystical Disputes and our Aether Gus, probably. I'm just gonna cut some of the like reactive stuff. Definitely a weird game, though. Very, very curious to see what our opponent's actually playing, because part of the value with the concession there, first of all, I think that was too early to concede. Our opponent didn't know we had a good hand, and in fact, our hand was very bad. We just had lands and Bone Crusher. So we were even regardless of what our opponent had in their hand. I would be very surprised if we were like anywhere close to 100% to win that game. I'm gonna ship this because just 2 lands is too risky with a deck with so much scrying. We just don't need to take those risks, and I'm gonna put back the Shimmer because we already have a bunch of scry stuff going on here. Okay, so they led on Stomping Grounds, which means they're playing a Teamer deck. I have no idea how to make use of that information other than let's just keep these cards and curve a fires into Cavalier and hope it's good enough. Could be like a flash strategy. Maybe we want to hold the Scry land. Okay, it could be Teamer Reclamation. That's another deck I failed to mention, but it could be Teamer Rec. That makes some sense. I guess I'll just dispute the Growth Spiral. Not sure if that's right, but also not sure if it's wrong. It's one of those weird spots where, like, if they just go land Wilderness Reclamation off the Growth Spiral and we're sitting there with Mystical Dispute, it looks pretty awkward, right? So we've, like, disrupted their mana development a little bit. Teamer Reclamation has just not been super popular, so that's why I was surprised to see it. Fry, that's fine. Oh, now that's annoying. Okay. But our opponent seems to not have a payoff, like a big card draw spell here. So we're just going to have to hope that they break off for a couple turns. Like, if they go Expansion this turn, or Explosion rather, we're going to lose, I think. But if this is just what they just did, then I think our chances are pretty good. I guess I just attack first and play another Cavalier. We actually kind of want the 6th land. 6th land would give us the ability to haste the Kenrith without a Fires, but now we can go Fires plus Kenrith. And I think it's likely our opponent just has nothing. Okay, they did not have nothing, so it's fine. They have one draw step here to find something. And that was not what they were looking for. Alright, so you can probably see, based on these games, why the Fires deck is by many considered to be the #1 deck in the format right now. And we're actually getting a match now against an opponent who has a higher ranking than I do, and I'm sitting at number 8 right now, so that's pretty impressive. This is a close hand. I think we want to mulligan this, although not. Yeah, I think we want to mulligan it because no clear avenue to get to Fires, and now this one we're going to keep. This is just a better hand than the previous one. I don't know if we want to burn the Scryland right now. I think I'm just going to play Hallowed Fountain. I want to see our opponent's first card to give us information about what they're playing. It's very... yeah, that's fine. So... I think it's just a Teferi turn. Yeah, they're just gonna do this now because I think there's still this awkward bug situation with the food, but we can take advantage of that and just bounce this food token.
Oh, I've done the hero thing before.
Actually, I don't know why our opponent activated the goose there.
That's more like it.
So we get to Fires, and then I think we just want a Sphinx as well. Questing Beast is interesting. A lot of these sack decks don't play Questing Beast. But having this 4/4 on the battlefield gives us some really nice protection against it. And it does look like it is the Jund variant of the Sacrifice deck. Cavaliers sounds good. Sounds exactly like what... it sounds like the exact card we wanted.
I'll protect you.
And now we just don't even really care what our opponent's doing. We're just going to be so far ahead. And they just, I mean, Okay, they could theoretically have a... They could theoretically have a Casualties of War next turn. But they're blocking with the Goose, so that seems unlikely. Now they can't. And even that I don't think would save our opponent necessarily. What I'm trying to say is I think we are going to win this game. I'd be surprised if we did not. Sure, Questing Beasts. I mean, they need to play it because they need to get rid of our Teferi. But it's not gonna be enough, I don't think. To bottom a land, then we get to Cavalier and pitch 2 lands. And do we cast this Deafening Clarion? Might be worth it just to give our things lifelink. But do we have lethal? I'm gonna cast the Clarion, I guess. Let's do that. I don't really see a reason not to. Haven't done the exact math. I don't think we have lethal, but I think we're dealing a lot of damage. And we might just want to play this land, actually, to deal more damage. I think we do. So our opponent can block, say the 2 Cavalier of Flames. And then they're taking 15. I would put our opponent down to 2. And then the Cavaliers die, so that actually is lethal. I take it all back. No, it's 13. Yeah, it's 15 plus now these die and we have lands in graveyard. So, yeah. Easy. Easy. Board in our Spyglasses for this matchup. And our Aether Gust. Sideboarding cards out is actually a little bit tricky. I'm not in love with Clarion in the matchup. Or Time Wipe, because like this matchup is you're kind of the aggressor in the matchup. So it's not really about dealing with some of their small creatures, although they do have the, being that they're the Jund version, Clarion gets a little better because they have the Mayhem Devils. I think I'm just going to take out a Drawn from Dreams and just keep in all of our fat stuff. Alright, so this is an interesting hand because we do have double Sphinx and double Teferi, which is good, but we kind of need a number of things. We need lands and we need fires pretty much to make this hand good. So I'm gonna ship that one. Keep our 6. And this gives us, I think, a much better shot of a turn 4 fires than the other hand did. Now, none of these cards look great to me. Yeah, I'm just going to get rid of those. Dig for fires. Like, if our opponent was to play something there, like a Mayhem Devil, Clarion would gain some value. They did find the Cindervines. That's super annoying. I'll keep the Bone Crusher. Can get rid of the Goose if we want to. Oh, yeah. That's rough. So now I think we just potentially want to play Bone Crusher out as a 4/3. Just because the Questing Beast plus the Cindervines is just representing so much damage. I think we're likely to lose this one, but we do get to play a fires. Do get that much. So might as well get that on the battlefield. And the Sphinx. So the Sphinx, if our opponent has like another Murderous Rider, that's probably just game. As is, we can block the Beast, and if our opponent sacks to get rid of the fires, then when that puts us down to 7. And if they don't have anything else, we have a chance. Not a good chance, but a chance. Alright. I assume the Questing Beast comes in, because they don't really want to allow us to get a chance to scry, I don't think. Okay. That's a gamble to let us scry. Another Cavalier. I'm not actually sure that's what we want. We just want another fires, kind of. Yeah, we're gonna bottom that one. And just jam this Cavalier that we do have. Just gonna pitch both. Alright. Interestingly enough, based on the cards we saw, it's possible our opponent took out the oven package, and if that's the case, we just want to be cutting our spyglasses for the next game. I'm attacking with Sphinx because we're fine with trading Cavalier for Beast, and it seems like our opponent doesn't have... like, they have one card left in hand, right? So, yes, they can top deck removal for Cavalier. I can just play out these adventure creatures. So yeah, this is a different version of. Okay, well, that's probably game. All right. I guess I top this and just kill the Goose. Spyglass is not good against this sideboard plan our opponent has. Maybe I was supposed to kill the 1/1 actually. I'm not even gonna show our opponent the Spyglass. I guess they are at 5, huh? I wasn't even thinking about that. Alright. Game 3. So I'm gonna cut Spyglasses for Drawn from Dreams and one other card. I think just the maybe we want probably Time Wipe is better than Solar Blaze. Might not even want this Clarion. We kind of want more answers to the Questing Beast type stuff. This is a close hand because we need to draw lands in order for it to be good. This is the type of hand that I ship generally because it's super risky to keep that. This one isn't great, but we'll run with it. Not having a Sphinx or a Shimmer type card in your opener just makes you feel like kind of helpless to your draw step, which like is rare, but sometimes that's just what happens. Like if we kept the first hand and we just miss a land drop, it's just devastating for us. I'm just gonna use this and then play it. It's not anything super exciting, but it is a 4/3 beater. Maybe it gets Murderous Ridered. Okay. Well, Fabled Passage would actually be really good if our opponent's next turn includes a Fabled Passage. That would be bad for us. Just because they would go Mayhem Devil, Fabled Passage, sack, and then they would be able to trigger it.
This might be a bad idea.
Now, here, think we want. What do we want to do here? This is actually tough. We could play Cavalier, it's a fairy rather, and just bounce the human. So it's unlikely our opponent can attack us. I think I'm going to do that.
If you show remorse, I'll show restraint.
There's not that many 1/1s in this deck. And we can potentially set up a Time Wipe spot where we can get multiple things with it. So now I guess the question would become, how much do we value our Teferi? I think we value the Bone Crusher a little bit more than the Teferi. Kind of want to just attack with Bone Crusher Giant. Also kind of want to just get a Cavalier down, honestly. And just become the aggressor. I kind of like that. It's just going... Yeah, I'm just going to go Fires Cavalier her, I think, and just not time wipe. And just force our opponent into a tough spot. I guess Mayhem Devil jumps in front, so they get, you know, some chumps. That's fine. Put the upkeep stop on. Now, if they have a Casualties of War, which they do, that is definitely the card that punishes us there. I think we were supposed to make that play, but I mean, Casualties is the reason why these Jun's sack decks, there's a lot of playability to them. Casualties is literally the card. And I like our opponent's sideboard plan of Lovestruck Beast. Lovestruck Beast is a card that... Actually, I'm surprised to see the Wicked Wolf. So I don't know exactly how our opponent has sideboarded, but it is working out for them.
Stay on the trail.
We can cast a Time Wipe. It's gonna make this Garrick absolutely massive.
We are relentless.
Very, very interesting list of this deck that our opponent's playing, but it's working out. So this is the type of situation where I don't... Even Fires may not get us out of this one. In fact, I'm just going to get rid of the Fires. I think we want to just deal 2 damage to this Garrick.
You're not scared.
But
of
I mean,
dogs, are ya?
yeah, these wolves are very likely to finish this off. GG.